How are you really standing out? Any agent out there that has a great marketing plan, because that's so big right now for us, any marketing that you do, I can do. It's just, am I willing to pay for it, right? I can pay for drones. I can pay for videos. I can pay for professional photos. It's not just about the end result. It's about the process.
So you're listening to the Real Estate Podcast, the number one real estate podcast in the world.
Bro, that is not the name of our podcast. What is happening here? That is not the name of our podcast, man.
You're throwing me off because you're so close to me right now. So I'll do that one more time. Thank you.
Yeah, you can actually smell him.
So I'm gonna start this again. Okay.
I don't know. I don't know if there's a benefit.
You're listening to the RE Agent Podcast, the number one podcast in the world, where we talk with real estate.
I don't even have to fuck with you. Do I want to do this for you, Cody? You need some help here?
Okay, I'll do this again. You're listening to the number one real estate podcast in the world, where we talk with agents all across the nation about their wins, losses, lessons, stories, help you win in your local market today. My name's Cody from Sheridan Street. I am joined with Vikram Deol of the Real Estate Sales Academy. My mic is actually working now, so I'm excited about that. But Vikram has thrown me off massively this morning.
You can make excuses, or you can be prepared for the storm. You think that the storm isn't going to come in life?
The storm.
You think that life is going to be this perfect fucking adventure for you, Cody? You're an entrepreneur.
So
you should expect more.
Let me get this straight.
I'm disappointed in you,
Cody. You messaged me, you called me, texted me 20 minutes before this podcast.
Disappointed in you.
I'm disappointed in you. I'm disappointed in you for not preparing.
I am prepared. I'm here.
We are
the RE Agent Podcast.
We are the RE
number one podcast in the world. Not the nation.
Not the nation.
Not North America.
The nation.
The world.
The nation.
The nation. The nation state.
But,
your ethos is off right now.
My ethos is super off this morning. Yeah. So we passed the 100th episode of the RE Agent Podcast, which is really exciting. We had Tamir Pollack on the show the other day, and it was exciting because he like doing a podcast with you in person. Like, I wish Jesse was here to like.
Oh, I'd be rubbing Jesse's leg.
Okay.
While I rub.
Guys, I do not wish I was there.
We're in Medellin, Colombia, bro. You might wish you were here.
I wish Jesse was here because he would add a little bit of like normalcy to this podcast. But like, again,
the more you say things, the more it's just like you're giving me. It's like telling the dog, "Don't go over there. Don't go over." The dog's like, "I gotta go over there."
Enabling him.
You're making me have to sniff, bro. Like it's. I'm gonna keep saying it's weird. I feel.
You feel good? I'm glad you feel good. How are you though? Like before we intro our guest and before we hop into the show.
Well, I just want to give props to our team and to my co-host Cody for 100 episodes. It's crazy and wild to think that we've been able to consistently launch 5 episodes a week. And you guys, just the back end, the challenges with booking 3 to 4 agents a week and getting them to show up.
So thank you, Jesse. Thank you for showing up. Getting them to show up.
It's busy out there. Like,
I get it.
And when the market slows down, when a client says, "Hey, I want to be there at 10 o'clock," and you're like, "Well, I got a podcast." They're like, "Dude, you want to make 20 grand or you want to be on a podcast?" So like, well, we need now money. So, the market has shifted, but we've crossed 100 since December. We had Tamir Pollack on, which is the CEO, founder of Real Brokerage, which was pretty cool. Like, it's just opening up a platform for more and more people to hear and win. So I'm really proud of our teams. Really proud of us. And I think
we said
he's not going to disappoint. No pressure, Jesse.
No pressure, Jesse.
None at all. None at all.
Yeah, we should intro the guest. You should intro the guest now.
Well, he's only been waiting in the green room for 11 minutes.
I know.
To get our tech figured out. It's our tech figured out. Third introduction here. So I've known Jesse since we were both young little studs in the prairie at Tom Ferry's events back in the day, and we just connected. Like we got into a circle of people, all high producers, all having fun, all really wanting to change the game in our marketplaces. Jesse's been an agent ever since the slight, he got into the real estate world right at the best time that you could possibly imagine, 2007, right when the market was on fire or it was melting. I don't remember. My memory serves me to a little inappropriately, but he's got multiple offices that he runs. He has a team. He's got virtual assistants that basically operate the team. So I'm really excited to jump in because he's also got some platforms that are helping to drive traffic into his office and keep his listings front and center. So, Jesse, I would love to just jump right in. First off, welcome to the RA Agent Podcast. I'm super excited that you're able to make it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Hey, congrats on the show too. Over 100 episodes. That's tough. Over 100 anything is tough. So congrats on the success.
Yeah, I appreciate it. We've it's been an interesting world and challenge, but it's fun that, you know, after all these episodes, Cody and I have probably done like maybe 15 in real life, even though we've practically lived like 4 kilometers, 2 miles away from each other the entire time. In fact, a lot of it, we lived less than 2 bedrooms apart from each other the entire time. So yeah, we appreciate that. Jesse, I want to jump right into it with you, if that's okay.
Yeah.
When we were talking about when we were talking in the green room, and you know, you've done mortgages, you've done real estate, you've had quite a bit of success, you've done expireds and canceled, right? You've crossed the gauntlet of everything. But when we were talking about the green room, you were talking about something which I think is really cool. You're talking about how you're driving traffic to your listings in today's age, not 2022, but like right now, and how that traffic is actually creating opportunities for you and your business. So what are you guys doing differently in your business that's actually driving lines of people to your listings?
Yeah. So, you know, pretty interesting stuff that we're doing. But before I jump into it, you really think about the way real estate has been done for the last 50, 60, 70, 80 years. And it really hasn't changed much. It's a testament to what we do, right? But the way my dad bought a home, the way his dad bought a home, it's really been the same. Whether he bought or sold it, it hasn't really changed. But yet our world has changed dramatically. So for us, what we're recognizing is that as this market has slowed down, it is very difficult for us as real estate agents to drive interest to these properties, right? Prices are still high. Interest rates are even higher. You have these buyers that just aren't motivated. I heard an agent the other day say that this era right now is called revenge of the buyers, which I thought was hilarious because, you know, you remember buyers lining up to see homes and they're not motivated. And we as real estate agents, we really only have a couple ways to get their interest, to get them through that front door. And that's either lowering the price, which no seller wants to do, or to create this amazing marketing plan. And you know, being around so many really good agents, we put some high level marketing out there, but that marketing right now still isn't enough to have that buyer stop everything that they're doing, you know, in the weekend, personal life, work life, whatever it may be, to go visit a great property that might be priced great. So one of the things that we've adopted and we've been actually using now for the past 7 or 8 years is a non-distressed auction platform. I know a lot of people think auction and they think foreclosures, right? That's kind of what's synonymous here in the United States, but around the world, Australia, New Zealand, auctions are the way they sell homes. That's the norm. And for us, that auction platform, giving a seller the option to sell the traditional way or the option to sell via an auction platform, has really helped us have more conversations and ultimately get that property sold.
When you're speaking with a buyer or you're speaking with a seller rather, and you're giving them the option of either going with the auction platform or going with, you know, the traditional way of selling their home, like what does that conversation look like for you in your local market so that maybe somebody else in their market that they want to consider doing this or using an auction platform can kind of like persuade or get their foot in the door with a specific seller?
So I think when we think auction, the first thing we think of is high prices, right? We think jewelry, we think art, fine cars. And I think that's great, but I try to take the seller, I try to pull them back and say, it's not just about the end result, it's about the process. So the comparison between the traditional way of selling real estate and the auction platform, I think is vital to get their interest and to see really what we're doing and why the auction works. And so they're just not thinking end result. So one of the things that we were talking about in the green room was the showing process, right? Traditionally, a buyer wants to see a property. They come anytime throughout the week, anytime throughout the day. They give the seller a little bit of notice and they come by and they see the property. Under our auction platform, what we're doing is we are driving all showings through the open house. And that's it. You're only seeing the property through the open house. The open house is typically for 1 hour, 1 day a week. Sometimes we'll do 2 days, but for the most part, it's Sunday, 12 to 1. And what we're doing is we're funneling all those buyers agents within that short period of time, which is doing a couple things, right? Number one, it's convenient for the seller. Quite frankly, I'm surprised how much attention and how many smiles, show up. The fact that the seller doesn't have to worry about lates, no shows from buyers, people calling at the last minute, keeping the house clean. They got kids, they got dogs. Let's be honest, it's a headache to show a property. They only have to worry about keeping the home clean 1 hour a week. So that's a big part of it. But what I get really excited about, I think, are the other two reasons. Number one, I'm there to sell the property. I'm not relying on a buyer's agent who tends to be, let's be honest, maybe a newer agent or on somebody's team, or some of these larger companies out there. They're not even licensed agents. They get paid $85 to open up a door. And, once they open up that door, that's it. They may not know the differences between a Milgard dual pane window and a Home Depot special, right? Dual pane window. They both look the same, right? But far different in cost for that seller, as well as a lifetime warranty and so forth. So we're there to actually sell the home, to know what's been put into all the upgrades and so forth. We're not relying on the buyer's agents. And then the third thing that I think is the most powerful is just the psychology of a buyer. When you're funneling so many people into that 1 hour period, you're seeing your competition, right? And because of the auction, you're going to get a variety of different buyers that are looking at the property at the true value of the home, and then buyers that are coming by thinking, maybe I can get a good deal. Not to mention, you sprinkle in some neighbors coming by wondering, well, what is this auction about? Why is it happening in my neighborhood? So we tend to generate even more interest and more traffic through that 1 hour period. But that one buyer that's interested, that's going around the house, that's looking, they don't see those other buyers in there as maybe an investor or somebody that can afford the home, or a neighbor, or just a looky-loo that's interested in the auction. They see them as competition.
Right. And you see buyers come to the auction without representation from a buyer's agent. Like, do you have a strategy around, like, you have a buyer who doesn't have representation to essentially flip those people into sellers or buyers? Like, what's your strategy there during the auction, the 1 hour?
Yeah. So a couple of things. We get a lot of buyers unrepresented. One of the biggest reasons, and I don't have any stats to prove this, but what I hear a lot is I hear a buyer walking in and say, hey, my agent saw the auction or we saw the property, but because you're showing it for 1 hour, a week, they couldn't make it. So we just decided to come on our own, which, I'll be honest with you, I'm happy with that. I'll take that all day long. If I can help represent a buyer as well, we'll take that. But we do get a lot of neighbors. We do get a lot of people that see, the volume of interest in that 1 hour period. We get people saying, how do we do this? How do we generate this at our house? So, in my open houses, we always say, as we all do real estate agents, we have this little area where we set up with our flyers and so forth. I have one little section there for buyers. But I also create another little section, maybe on the other side of the house, for sellers. A couple reasons why I do that. Whatever I'm saying usually to a buyer is maybe not necessarily what a seller wants to hear. And what I'm saying to a seller is not what a buyer wants to hear, right? If I'm talking to a seller saying I can get you the highest possible price and create bidding wars, not something necessarily that a buyer wants to hear, right? So what we like to do as a team is have two different stations. As a team leader, if I see one of my agents talking to somebody over on this side of the house, I immediately know that's a seller as opposed to a buyer. It makes it a little bit easier for me to go in there and make sure that I'm talking the language that seller and or buyer may want to hear.
Yeah, man. We had this similar strategy back when, before I retired out of real estate, and we would list on a Thursday. We would restrict all showings until the open houses on Sunday. And then our Sunday was 2 to 4.
Yep.
And we would get the house set up early. People would be like, hey, can we come check it out? I'm like, actually, we're getting the home set up. And they'd be like, oh, okay, well, we're really interested. What time should we come back? Just hang out for about 15 minutes out front. And they're like, oh, you don't mind? I'm like, no, just chill out front. Take a look at the inside, the outside of the property. So now we already have people walking the property before the open house started. And there's all these people that tried to get in, right, that they couldn't. Hey, guys, the seller's getting ready for the open houses. He's super busy. She's got a bunch of work and meetings and blah, 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 right? We had our whole spiel. So the other agent wasn't offended because the other agent, well, why would you list it on Thursday, right? So you have to prep your team to not offend the other agents.
Absolutely.
Bro, our Sunday open houses, we used to call it the sardine model, right? So when we'd be on a presentation, I'd be like, well, have you guys ever seen a sardine? And they're like, a sardine can? They're like, yeah. Like, when you open it up, what is it? They're like, oh, it's a bunch of sardines packed in a can. I'm like, exactly. Would you rather have an open house where there's like 7 people coming over 5 hours? Or would you rather have an open house where there's 70 people coming over 2 hours? So like, well, 70 over 2 hours. I'm like, right, you want the sardine effect. And what you're doing is the sardine effect. And when you do that, you get a ton of unrepresented buyers. You get a ton of people that, well, you know, we would have called Redfin or we would have called the door openers, but you're opening it for an hour. We'll just go talk to you. And it gives you an opportunity to pull in a lot of leads in a short period of time. Like, I don't know what your thoughts are on it, but like on your traditional properties, right? Are you guys doing 2 to 3 hour open houses? Or are you guys still trying to follow that 1 to 2 hour open house model?
It's funny you say that because there's so many things with the auction that I think have been, I don't want to say perfected, but have been improved, right? One of the mottos that we have in our auction platform is we're rethinking real estate, because there's a lot of imperfection that we just have gotten used to. If you really look at the model of a real estate transaction, like, why do we do that? Just because that's the way we do it. So yeah, I've taken some of these strategies that we've used in the auction and I've overlapped them with the traditional model. You know, for me, I try not to blend them too much together because I want to make sure that I still have that option, right? Statistically, clients feel better about working with somebody that provides options to them. But there's no doubt that showing process, I will overlap that with the traditional should I get the opportunity to. Absolutely.
So when you're going in and you're doing an auction, right? You're sitting down, like, let's say you're sitting down with Cody and his significant other, and we're having a meeting with them, and you're talking about like how the auction model is different than the traditional model. What are your sellers objecting to? Like, what are they saying? Because I know that a lot of people have the stigma of an auction like you're foreclosing, or they have the stigma of an auction like it's a Sotheby's where, you know, do you have minimum bids? Do you have a starting price? Like, you know, how do you actually go about, is there a special thing on the MLS? Like, how do you actually go about listing these properties so that, and talking to these agents or these sellers so that they realize that the value is there, but if it doesn't happen, you still have a back end safety net, like, or do you not have one?
And then the supplementation to that question is, how are you explaining it to other agents that might not know how an auction works?
Yeah. Well, you know what's funny, Cody, is I'll address that first, right? Because everybody thinks they know how an auction works. I mean, reality is you start low and you bid up. That's true. I think the struggle that I have is explaining to them that there's so much more to it. And I kind of alluded to it earlier. It's a process, right? So to be able to maybe answer both of your questions here, one example of our auction is that you can make an offer on auction day, right? We have an auctioneer, we have a bidder, we have a gavel going once, going twice. Like, we actually have an actual auction day. And I hear there's a lot of copycats right now trying to do what we're doing, saying auction style pricing, or we run an auction. There's no auction day. There's no auctioneer. And to me, if you have no auctioneer, you have no auction day, then is it really an auction, right? So that's one way. The second way for us is to let the buyers know during that open house, if you like the property, you can register and wait for the auction, or you can submit an offer today. Anytime prior to that auction day, right? If you submit an offer and it's something that the seller likes, we can open up escrow immediately. Cancel auction day and let's move forward. So it gives the buyer a sense of, okay, this isn't as different the process of an auction as far as the one I'm used to, right? Because I think sometimes when you introduce the idea of auction, people start thinking, what hoops do I have to jump through? Or in some cases, what rings of fire do I have to jump through? And for us, it's like, no, it's no different. If you like it, write an offer up tomorrow. Write it up in the same way you wrote up any other offer in the past. It's no different. And if it's a number that the client likes, hey, let's open up escrow and move forward. You don't have to jump through my rings. And I think that gives the buyer the sense of security. And if they're familiar with it, they think it interesting, right? Real quick, one of the things that we do differently too, and certain states actually across the country do this, we do everything that typically is done during escrow up front. So the seller disclosures, the home inspections, the termite inspections, and so forth, we do that up front. So when I'm explaining to the buyer, hey, if you like the home and you want to make an offer today, right? It's no different than the traditional way of selling real estate. except for the fact that you actually have more information on our home. You're not just going in, writing up an offer, being very aggressive, and then surprise, you realize there's problems with them. With ours, you know if there's a problem or not. And that makes the buyers feel so much more at ease as well with the process. That's typically something that I'll get from a buyer is that objection. And this may not be from the seller side, but from the buyer side, not knowing what they're really getting into. And it's our job to remind them that now it's not that different than what you're used to. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. And thank you for giving that explanation, because I think that there's a few things that when somebody's thinking about even changing the way that they sell, like even like for me and Vikram, like we have agents that come into our programs that are like, well, I've always sold this way, so it's very difficult for me to change the process in which I sell. Where it's like when you go down an auction route, like, it's different. It's changing the way that they would sell a home. So maybe to an agent out there in their local market, they're like, this is cool, but like, I'm going to have to change my entire process. Like, what advice would you have for them to innovate the way that they sell, to give their sellers, to give the buyers that are interested in the property more opportunity in order to essentially sell the home better? Like you're saying that this is really working for you. What would you say to an actual agent who's might be reluctant towards taking this strategy and running with it?
Yeah, great question. So, I always say as a young agent, as I'm interviewing agents and then bringing them on board to our offices, if you're an experienced agent, that's one thing, but the majority of us are not. And I remember working really hard to get an opportunity at a listing appointment, right? Somebody I didn't know. I now have an opportunity to show up there. I'm prepared. I'm ready to go. I'm dressed right. I'm dialed in. I have an amazing appointment with them. But for whatever reason, a couple days later, they'd reach back out to me and say, Jesse, we really liked you. We really liked your marketing. We really liked whatever it was, but we decided to go with somebody else, right? We can all relate to that feeling. It's that punch in the gut. And typically it was because somebody could do it cheaper, which I don't want to do, right? Somebody would do it cheaper. Somebody has more experience than us in that neighborhood, or somebody lives there, right? It was usually one of those three things. And you really can't change any of those, or you just don't want to change them, right? So how do you level the playing field, right? And for me, when you have a tool, a resource that the competition doesn't have, it now gives you a better chance of attaining business. And so we have a lot of younger agents, I'd say 3-4 years in the business, that work with a lot of buyers, are trying to break into that listing arena, try to get a higher price point. By giving them that tool of the auction, it just opens up so many more doors, and it allows them to compete with some really big agents. I mean, look, I was on a listing presentation last week, high-end area, an area that I've sold a handful of properties in, but I'm competing with an agent that works in that neighborhood specifically for the past 25 years. I think just this year, she's already sold 6 in that neighborhood. I can't compete with that. Now, quite frankly, I think I could do a better job than her, right? But why am I there, right, interviewing for that position versus anybody else? Because of the auction. Right? The process gave me another at bat. Yeah, because of the process. So that's, I think as real estate agents, we're always looking for that appointment. We're always looking for that conversation. Being able to stand out is huge. And in the real estate industry, look, we're all the same, right? Any agent out there that has a great marketing plan, because I keep using marketing because that's so big right now for us. Any marketing that you do, I can do. It's just, am I willing to pay for it? Right? I can pay for drones. I can pay for videos. I can pay for professional photos. How are you really standing out, right? So then it always falls back on your experience. And if you're a younger agent, you can't change that overnight. Makes sense?
We were chatting. Yeah, 100%. We were chatting about that the other day, me and Vic, about the different entry points that you could have to selling a home. Like, we have a partnership with Revive, who does, $0 down on renovations, pay on closing. It's like having these different ways to sell property is like so important, because it allows you to stand out from everyone else in the market. Like, there's that book, $100 Million Offers by Alex Hormozi. It's like, what is your offer? Like, what's your unique selling proposition in the marketplace that's going to separate you from everyone else? And having different Rolodex gives you the at bat, because maybe your brand's not that big. Maybe they, like you mentioned, that person that's been in the market for 25 years, they have maybe more experience, but when you come with an irresistible offer, you come at them with a new unique selling proposition, you get the at bat. And then it obviously comes down to sales. When we're talking about process and we're talking about team members. We were talking off air about kind of like how your team is structured and what that looks like. Obviously, to run an auction, you have to create a brand new standard operating procedure. It's the like you said, the way that you're selling auction is a little bit different than the way you would sell like traditionally. Like, how are you setting up these processes in your business, and like, what does your team structure look like? Because we chatted off air that it's a little bit different than kind of the traditional model.
Yeah, I mean, luckily we have the processes all set up for you, right? So if you're an agent, you can jump right in and make it easy. But from a day-to-day standpoint, and there's no doubt that the auction, besides just the explanation, there's a lot more work involved from the agent side, whether it's because it's something that you're not familiar with, or because you're getting a lot more people reaching out to you, asking you about the auction and so forth. So for me, I'd like to say that it's all me, but I definitely have to have some sort of support, right? And I have the auction team to support with negotiations and so forth. But we talked about this. I have virtual assistants that I've brought in, and the virtual assistants have been extremely helpful for me, whether it's talking to clients, emailing certain documentation, or in some cases just reminding me, Jesse, you have appointment in 10 minutes. You got to get to it. And that's been extremely helpful. So I've gone through the whole model, right? As far as the real estate team, having buyer's agents, having showing agents, having somebody handle my marketing, running offices. It's a little bit different. So I don't have that traditional model, let's say. But I do need help because there's just not enough of us. We're going out and working at a higher level and growing our business. There needs to be somewhat more of us. The virtual assistants have been huge to support me and give me that time that I need to succeed.
So you run 3 offices and you have your own production. What does your team structure look like? Are you a solo agent with support, or you have an actual team at this point?
A solo agent with 2 virtual assistants. That's it.
No boots on the ground to help you locally?
No boots on the ground. No. Okay. No. Which, sometimes I think I probably should use 1 or 2, but no, and you know how it is. When you have good systems, when you have a good process, and you have that support, you can actually make it happen.
Well, Sharon and I were talking last year, and he's like, Vic, I just want to help the solo agent that wants to make $1 million a year. He's like, I don't want to advocate building. He's like, I have a lot of clients that have huge teams. You know them, right? Like you know the names. You know the people I advise, like you've met them, cool people. He's like, that's a different breed. He's like, but I love the real estate agent that's like, I love helping people. I want to make a buttload of money, and then I want to take that money and I want to do something else with it. Like I want to invest it so that I don't have to sell real estate into my 70s. I can actually enjoy all of the hard work that I put into my life, right? So it's like, it's interesting, and I'd like to maybe pick your brain a little bit more on why you went from the traditional team model to the solo back, because a lot of people will be like, oh, you're going the wrong way, bro. Like you can't compete in a world with so many agents and teams, right? But even teams are still comprised of individual agents that just have support. Like a team is just a bunch of individual agents, and most training sucks. So why did you go from team Jesse back to solo agent Jesse with support?
So there's nothing wrong with those type of teams. I think they're great. You and I both have a lot of really good friends that have these mega teams and very successful. That just wasn't me. It was too much to take on. A lot of headaches, a lot of mouths to feed.
When you say it's too much to take on, how do you mean by that? Because I think in the industry right now, everybody is spewing from stages. You need to build a big team and have the support so that you can get out of production and you could go be the CEO or whatever. Why, when you say it's a lot of headaches, what were your headaches? Like what were the things that you just were like, fuck this, I can do just as well without all this headache?
I think some of the ups and downs that we have as teams we've all experienced is the agents that I brought on weren't necessarily at the level of motivation that I was at. And that can become very defeating to find people like you. And so what I've seen typically for a lot of these teams is, somebody's a solo agent doing really well, and the introduction of a team comes up, and all of a sudden, you start hiring this person. You start bringing this role on. And really, quite frankly, you're up here, but all of a sudden with the team, because you have to recruit them, you have to train them, you have to, answer all of the problems and the headaches. You have to teach them. You start seeing the production for yourself going down, right? And all of a sudden, if it's going down, and those agents who you tend to recruit, who, let's be honest, are probably younger, that's why they're there, they need your help, they're not moving at a fast enough pace that you'd like to supplement that income. So you see a lot of real estate agents going up and down with teams. There's been so many teams I've seen that I'm like, wow, that looks like they're building a pretty strong team. Next thing you know, the team is gone. 6 months, a year later, all of a sudden the team's coming back. To me, there was too many ups and downs. I didn't like that. There's one person I can rely on, and that's me, right? There's one person I know that's motivated, that's me. And so I just decided, hey, I'm going to work with myself. I'm going to also just have a support staff, right? That backs me up, that nobody else sees necessarily, but I'll be that one man, right? And here's something interesting. I'm doing a speech at a conference in a month or so, and I forget the title of my speech. We just came up with it, but it's basically how to create a symphony as a one-man band, right? And one of the reasons why I'm going with that topic is because I don't believe that everybody wants to be this big CEO with the mega team. I think majority of the agents want to make a really healthy living, maybe have a small team, maybe, but really what they're looking at is, how do I close more transactions, right? And so I think the audience, the larger audience for me, is talking to somebody that doesn't necessarily want to be that team leader, but just wants to sell a lot of properties. And so, I love Sharon, right? This is where a lot of the stuff comes from for me is, how do I put those systems? How do I put those processes in place so that it looks like there are 4 or 5 of me, but in reality, there's one of me. I don't have to worry about, a $60,000, $70,000 payroll, right? And I see a lot of that. People just going broke by hiring a marketing advisor, or, hiring a showing agent. It becomes a lot to take on. And I also don't think that we're really trained or built to be leaders. Not all of us are, right? But yet you're trying to throw somebody in the position to also be a leader as well. There's so many opportunities for failure, right? There's some great opportunities for success as well. But from what I see, there tend to be a lot more failure when you go after that big prize. So I would rather speak to the masses, those agents that want to grow the business, that want to have a small support staff. And I think some of the tools that I can provide to them will allow them to hit that success. And then as an agent of mine, I can retain them, right? They appreciate what I provided to them.
Jesse, I really do appreciate sitting down with us today and just talking about your auction, talking about different ways and different innovative ideas that will allow real estate agents in their local market in order to win. Specifically around just even the shift in mindset, where it's getting really clear on what do you want? Do you want to be a CEO? If you want to be a CEO and that's your North Star, then go and do that. But if you want to be a solo agent, I think so many people, they try to attack something because they think they should, where it's maybe that's not for you. So I really just appreciate your honesty and transparency about where you're at, and just sharing so freely with everyone that is going to listen back to this podcast. If somebody were to want to reach you and they want to have a conversation about maybe an auction, or maybe it's an agent-to-agent referral, they want just have a conversation with you, where is the best place that we should direct them in order to reach out to you?
Instagram, right? I'm sure that's a surprise. Good old Instagram. SD as in San Diego, SD_agent, AGENT. Find me there. Always there to help. Always there to just share my information. And we're doing auctions all over the country as well. So if anybody thinks of a particular property that they feel like, hey, this would be a great opportunity to have a conversation about this process, always available to lend an ear there.
Hey, Jesse, really do appreciate your time today. Really appreciate you just sharing so much insight today. And I want to say thank you for tuning into another episode of the RE Agent Podcast, the #1 podcast in the world. We'll see you soon.